Please take a seat. I hope we have enough. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody ready? Check. Good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming with a very short notice. This is something was communicated with me like a couple of days ago, 2-3 days ago, and thank you for being here. And I really appreciate we are joined by a number of elected officials and other community leaders. I start with Brian Middleton, Fort Bend County District Attorney, State Representative Ron Reynolds, District 27. And of course, Democratic Party Chair Cynthia Jr. Cynthia, you here? Yes, I am. I wouldn't think any different, but and also is Cam Campbell? Oh, that's you. Thank you, sir. I don't remember meeting you. Sorry. The nominee, Democratic Party nominee for District 132, and Sophia Sheikh is the president of Democratic Women of Fort, and of course also joined by Dr. Suleiman Lalani, who is the Democratic Party nominee for the new state House HD 76. Being said that, and you know that why we are here, and I'm glad TDP selected our county to start their tour of reaching out to the community and letting them know that how we are making a difference in people's life. And I tell you, the last Democrat who was elected to Fort Bend County was in 1994. No, yeah. And so they're out of here, I believe, in 1994. That means 24 years now. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, almost 30 years. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, when I came into office, and it was all controlled by the other side, and many people didn't even know a county judge and what they do and things of that nature. Majority didn't know, especially Fort Bend have more than 30% of Fort Bend residents are foreign born. And so they have no idea what a county judge do. And many times people used to ask me, you are not an attorney, why you're running for a judge and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, they didn't know. And I said, then I explained to them, what a county judge do. And then they asked me, who is that guy? And I said, you don't know, right? So who cares? So I said, at least you know who is going to be the next one. We joked about it. But the thing about all I'm trying to say is that we came a long way last 4 years, and I made a commitment to make sure people understand what we do. And especially Brian knows we got elected together coming into office. And so we did that. And I said, now, these days, some people come and yell at me, and I tell them, at least you know who to yell at now, right? So, which is actually a good thing. So I tell you what our party stands for and what we believe in as collectively caring for people, especially when there is any kind of disparities in our community. You know that it's disproportionately affected people of color, and especially African-American community, Latinos, and things of that nature. I mean, group like that. And 1.8 times, some 2019 census data is showing that 1.8 times and 1.5 times Hispanic and Black community are likely to be in poverty compared to their white counterparts. That is based on 2019 census. And also it is unbelievable. The fact is, we have to talk about civil rights, and we have to talk about women getting paid equally for the same work, men getting paid more. And all this stuff in 2022, we are fighting. And we are many times, I felt like it is, and also you all know that, especially unabashed lies are taking place as truths. This is just lies, and our democracy is consistently being challenged. As President Biden stated during the speech at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, our equality and democracy are under attack. And you all know that. That is the case. And what are we supposed to do? This is something we need to engage. It is about our future. And also, I wanted to say this, why we must support our fellow Democrats in Washington, D.C. and in Austin. They are fighting for average people's life, and their effort yielded American Rescue Plan, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and also Inflation Reduction Act, and many other legislation. And being a county judge, I know that how it impacted those resources, how impacted our citizens in Fort Bend County. And we distributed more than $50 million in rental assistance in Fort Bend County. And because of that, many of our fellow citizens are not evicted, and they still have a place to stay. And that's what we believe in, and that's what we fight for. That's what we continue to fight for, because making a difference in people's life is the key, and also providing a voice for voiceless. And that's what, also you all know that I'm neither born and raised Republican nor Democrat. And I came to this country and I decided this is where I need to be. This side I need to be, because we care about people. And also I'll tell you this, even home ownership, when you're talking about, according to 2020 Census Bureau information, 44.1% of Black Americans own their homes compared to 74.5% white Americans. And this is the reason why we need to continue to support our fellow Democrats in Washington and also in Austin, because we need to bring the Fair Housing Act, the Mortgage Disclosure Act, affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, hold lenders accountable for against discriminatory practices. And also, you know that the Biden-Harris administration directing Department of Housing and Urban Development to announce around $759.7 million grant, so that can be distributed and help our citizens have affordable housing, and which is also an issue. Fort Bend County is comparatively a rich county, but housing is an issue, and we will be watching it very closely. Economic disparity is another area. You all know that anytime there is a downturn happen in our economy, especially people of color get affected, and that is not any different last 2.5 years, in the middle of this pandemic. And also, this is interesting, typical Black women, 19 months to earn what a typical white counterpart earn in 12 months. And when it comes to people of color, others like Latinas and Native American women, it's almost 2 years. It's time to end these things, because we need to treat people with dignity. And I always reiterated that conversation. And we need to fight against or fight to create some kind of common sense reform in these all areas, and gap in wages. And I still, can you explain to me in 2022, why do we have to tell people, oh, our sisters and mothers and daughters should get paid equal amount of money? A guy get paid for the same job. Why do we have to fight about it? I really don't get it. I'm still struggling with that. Why do we have to talk about it? And you know that another area is, let us start trusting our mothers, our sisters, our daughters. I know that they're going to make the right choice. And that is not my place to go and tell them what they should do with their body. And so these things are basic. In my opinion, these things are basic rights, basic rights, and we need to fight for these rights. And voting. And I'm sitting in the middle of all this stuff. In Fort Bend County, we made everything possibly we can do to make sure our citizens could go and vote. Many parts of Texas, that's not how things are. And so we just want to, thanks to District Attorney Brian Middleton's contribution and also our Sheriff Eric Fagan contribution to those efforts. And also I wanted to say people like Ron Ronald and also those who are aspiring to be the next state rep, running away for fairness. And you know the story, going to Washington, D.C. and leaving their family a month. How long it was, Ron? A month, so that they could fight about this unbelievable draconian, whatever you wanted to call, voting rights and also redistricting and all that stuff. And SB 1, Republicans have at every level, the government has deliberately tried to make harder for our communities of color about their voices heard. And I tell you, and I know mostly I'm preaching to the court here, and you all know this, but for the sake of those who are listening, it is important we get out and vote and express our right. And let me talk briefly about what happened last 4 years in Fort Bend County. We came into office and people looked at us. Brian Middleton was the first person of any color elected to district attorney's office. And I'm also the first person elected to county judge's office, a person of color first time in the 182 years of Fort Bend history. And also some people looked at me like, in Fort Bend, the sky is going to fall and everything is going to go upside down because the guy doesn't look like everybody else. You could look upstairs. We have all the county judges' pictures, and last picture happened to be mine, and I don't look like anybody in that lineup. So, but I tell you this: we came a long way, people. We came a long way, and I tell you, we are number one when it comes to number one, number two, always first or second when it comes to vaccine administration and things of that nature. 98% of Fort Bend residents 65 and up is fully vaccinated. And also 79% of our residents 5 and up is fully vaccinated in Fort Bend County. And I promise you, many counties in this region cannot claim that high percentage. I always talk about intentions. We were intentional about making sure our citizens get vaccinated. That's why we made it available, and they went and got the shot. And also we put numerous programs, thanks to the American Rescue Plan and other programs. We put numerous programs in place. Rental assistance, utility assistance, mortgage assistance, daycare voucher program. We all eat Texas, supporting our restaurants, and Get Hired program. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but this all program we put in place. And that's the very reason why you don't see people standing out there at the street corner. They have no place to go when they need to go home. And they all have a place to go. And that is also yielding fantastic result in Fort Bend County, which is we are, I don't know you know this, we got ranked the number 2 richest county in state of Texas out of 254 counties. And then people ask me who is number 1, Rockwall County outside of Dallas, which is only have around 100,000 people. And our population is exploding. We only had 52, those who don't know, those who heard this a million times, forgive me. We only had 52,000 people in the 1970 census. Today, we are the latest census updated number showing that 882,577. That is exponential growth. People continue to move to Fort Bend and calling Fort Bend home. And we just got ranked by U.S. News and World Report as one of the healthiest counties in the country. And in this region, nobody even made it to that list. That's all happened because our citizens care for themselves, and we are creating a platform where they could excel. And that's why it is happening. So I think enough being said, and I tell you, under our watch. And I just wanted to say, about Brian Middleton, our district attorney. Today in Fort Bend County, our children who make a mistake, they are children, and they have a second chance because the program Brian started to support our children getting a second chance so that they are not permanently part of the criminal system or victims of that system. And so thanks to that effort, and this all shows Democrat at large help and support average people, and we believe in human dignity. And I will conclude here saying that, thank you for coming. And end of the day, what is the message? Because it is, we need to continue to elect good people like the people we are talking about here, so that we could keep the sanity, we could hold on to our democracy. And I never thought we get into this level, because I'm also an immigrant. When I always cherished and loved about Fort Bend County is, we are the beacon of hope for the people all over the world. All over the world, we wanted to hold on to that hope, and so we will. And we all continue to work hard. And bottom line is, this election is more important than ever. In 2022 election, we need to hit the polls. And that is the bottom line. But thank you for being here. And at this point, I will invite our very own district attorney, Brian Middleton, to make a few remarks.
Thank you, Judge. We live in the greatest country in the whole world. As I stand here next to this flag, I'm reminded of what we say every time we say Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our country was founded on these basic tenets that all men are created equal. But right now in our country, there are some people who want to promote discrimination and hatred and regressive policies that threaten these basic philosophies on which our country was founded. We all go to church together and we sit side by side in a nonpartisan way, worshiping the same God, reading out of the same book. But when it comes to politics, we forget. It's not easy, and it can be exhausting to advocate for the underserved and the people who don't have a voice. But isn't that what we all believe in? Isn't that what our religions are based on? Isn't it what our country was founded on? Speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves, helping others, helping the underserved. We have to get back to what our country was founded on, the basic tenets, and stop the double standards and stop the hypocrisy. That's why you need to vote for Democrats. Democrats are the party for all people right now. We are the voice for the underserved and the underrepresented. And if you believe in these basic philosophies of our country, then you should be voting for Democrats. Because right now, the opposition is letting a few people lead their charge. And that charge will steer us in a regressive manner. We will go back to regressive policies. The underrepresented and the underserved will suffer, but that's not who we are. It's time for us to stand up and make a demand for democracy. It's the time to stand up for what we believe in, and that's say no to the opposition. We've had enough. We believe in freedom for all people, and we believe in liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And next at the podium will be Representative Ron Reynolds from District 27.
Thank you, Judge George and DA Brian Middleton. I am proud to serve as state representative in Fort Bend County, as Judge George noted, the most diverse county in the country. The representation reflects that great diversity, and I'm proud to be the first African-American elected state representative in this county since Reconstruction. And I realized I didn't get here by myself. I stand on the shoulders of others. And that is what the Democrats have done. They have been there as a big tent, fighting for communities of color. And the district attorney is right. The Republicans have been recalcitrant. They have been obstructionists. They have, what Judge George talked about when me and some of my colleagues fled to DC, we didn't do that because we wanted a vacation. We didn't do it because we were looking to go and tour the Capitol or kick it at the White House. We were doing it because we wanted to protect the freedom to vote that so many of our forefathers fought for. So many people, Cynthia, whose shoulders we stand on, whose names we don't know today, they literally died for their precious fundamental right to vote so that African Americans and people of color could go vote. And they wanted to reverse that. They wanted to take us back to dark days before we passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 so that they could have Jim Crow 2.0, so they could have more disparities within our voting that prohibited blacks and browns from voting. So we fought, we took a stand, and that's what Democrats do. The only reason why we weren't able to pass it was because of the recalcitrant Republicans that were willing to suppress black and brown voters. Voting, the most precious fundamental right that we have. Republicans led that from the great state of Texas. And I'm a proud Texan, but I'm very ashamed of Governor Abbott and his failed policies, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and our DA Brian Middleton, shamefully, our Attorney General, Ken Paxton. They've done everything they could to oppress black and browns, oppressing when it comes to voting, oppressing when it comes to healthcare, something that's so fundamental to our human life, Dr. Lalani. Healthcare. Texas, unfortunately, leads this nation in the highest number of uninsured under Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick. That is shameful. We had a chance to pass legislation for Medicaid for all. We had a chance to pass legislation so that Texas could get some of the monies, billions and billions of dollars from the Obamacare. And yet and still, Texas failed to do that. And as a result of that, black women in Texas lead the nation in maternal deaths right here in Texas. That should really shock all of our consciousness. Right here in Texas, lead the nation in the highest number of uninsured, lead the nation in maternal deaths for black women. We need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot that will put people before politics. And here we are today when the students from Uvalde are going back to school. And my heart goes out to them as a parent of students in public school. When we have a governor that would not, even though Democrats, we asked for a special session so that we could pass some simple gun safety reforms. Do simple things, not infringing upon anybody's Second Amendment right, but making sure that we had schools that were safe for children and teachers to go so they could focus on education, not drills for active shooters. But Governor Abbott was so beholden to the NRA that he refused to do common sense things like raise the age to buy an assault rifle from 18 to 21. And most recently, he came out with some ridiculous notion that he couldn't do it. Well, I got news for you, Governor Abbott. Even another crazy governor from Florida, a Republican state, even they did it after their mass shooting. So come on, give me a break. Enough about hopes and prayers. We need action and policies. We need red flag laws. We need to close the gun show loopholes. We need universal background checks. These are common sense things that we can do in Texas. We can do things to help protect life. Don't claim to be pro-life when you won't protect our children. And so I'm very proud of the policies that have been passed by Governor Abbott and Democrats in Congress that Judge George talked about. And I'm very ashamed of the failed direction of this state. When Democrats are in charge, we will get and close that loophole for protecting our kids. We will make sure that we have a livable wage. We will make sure that we believe in science. We will fix the damn grid. We will do so many things to protect people and average families to make sure that Texas is the best place to live, work, and play. And that is why this November you have a choice. You can go forward and under the Biden and what Democrats are doing in Congress with the infrastructure bill, with the policies to create common sense gun reforms, criminal justice reforms. DA Middleton knows this because he fought for it. In Texas, we have some of the worst laws for Black and brown communities. There's so many disparities within our criminal justice system, and we can fix that. So I'm praying that this November that people will go and take their anger out at the polls. And finally, we have a chance to make sure that we protect a woman's right to choose. Texas led with that ridiculous bill, the 6-week abortion ban, which now is a total abortion ban. I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe women should be able to have control of their bodies, bodily autonomy. I believe that abortion is healthcare. And it is unfortunate that in Texas, that they wouldn't even make an exception for rape or incest, not an exception to protect the health of a woman. They are the worst when it comes to protecting the rights of women and children, and they have been beholden to the extreme far right agenda of Trump. And so we have a chance to go to the polls this November when healthcare is on the ballot, abortion is on the ballot, common sense gun reform is on the ballot, fixing our grid is on the ballot, a livable wage is on the ballot. There's so many things on the ballot this November, and Democrats are the way to achieve it. We will put people before politics and not cater to special interest groups like the NRA. And the next person I'm proud to bring up is our illustrious Fort Bend County Democratic Party Chair, Cynthia Ginyard, who under her leadership has helped turn this county blue. And we got a Judge KP George, we got a DA Brian Middleton, we're gonna get a state representative, Suleiman Lalani, and we're gonna get a state representative, Coach Cam. So give it up for our illustrious, fearless leader of the Democratic Party in Fort Bend County, Cynthia Ginyard.
A good morning to everyone. It's so much to talk about when you talk politics and communities of color. And I could talk all day, but I don't know if Judge George would be happy with that. So maybe I'll focus on what I work most closely with, and that is voting. I was a little girl in 1965. I would have been 8 or 9 years old. I remember the turbulent 60s, and you all, they were turbulent. If you weren't around then, it was the equivalent of having a 9/11, perhaps you were around then, every year. That's how profound the tragedies were and how often they occurred. The voting rights came in the turbulent 60s. And here we are today in 2022 fighting the same fight over again. It's just a natural progression that you keep moving forward, not going back to go back to that point again. So I get disturbed at what the Republicans are doing. Let me tell you, Democrats are better for Fort Bend. Democrats are better for Texas, and Democrats are better for this country. What I have come to accept is that you can't reckon with "I don't care." You can't reckon with that. So what do? You fight. I have some tenacity about me. It's just natural. I stepped into this office in 2016 because we as Democrats in this county weren't winning anything much other than what we had in our total navy blue area. I said, we can do better than this. Maybe we can't win it all, but we can do better than this. And we needed to put some measures in place. And one of the critical components was getting our citizens registered and getting them out to vote. And guess what? You fast forward 6-7 years later, that's still the truth. To all of you out there, if you're registered, we need you to go and vote. I do not want to hear that my vote doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. You are told that it doesn't matter. I call it the okie doke, so that you won't go and vote. Every time you vote for a candidate, that candidate is not going to be the one to win all the time. But you tell me what else in life goes the way you want all the time. So just because your chosen candidate did not win a race, that does not mean you quit voting. We have to keep the fight. If you're not registered, we need you to get registered. And in order to vote in the November 8th election, you know, Texas has rules that do not embrace our citizens at all. You have to be registered 30 days before any election. So October 11th, you must be registered in order to vote in the November 8th election. And we need you to get that done. And if you are registered, we need you to go and vote. Early voting starts October 24th. I encourage people to go and early vote. Why? Because you have about 10, 11 days. You don't know what's going to happen on election day. That's one day. And if you miss that opportunity, or if you have an unplanned event in your family, you don't get a chance to go on November 9th. But if you early vote, you say, well, I can't go today. Well, you've got 10, 11, 12 days to go. So go and early vote. Get it out of the way. It is important. Our leaders have already shared with you, for this country to work for people, Democrats are about democracy, decency, and fairness for all. We need Democrat leaders all up and down the ballot. We have seen how the leaders' hands get tied. President Biden's hands get tied because he does not have that flow of Democratic leaders. President Obama's hands were tied at times because of the lack of flow of Democratic leaders down the ballot to vote and support the measures. And before I talk all day, our history is our history. And when you see me stand up, when you see me rise up, when you see me raise hell, and yes, I do that sometimes. You know, I do it because I say to myself, who are you, Cynthia Ginyard? Your ancestors couldn't. And if they did, what about the consequences? So when you can speak up, Cynthia Ginyard, when you can rise up, Cynthia Ginyard, when you can take action, Cynthia Ginyard, when you can draw the line, Cynthia Ginyard, who are you not to when folks died, were beaten for this right to vote. All elections matter, not just November. All elections matter. Our local races matter. It all works together. These leaders will tell you, don't you work with local officials as well? Municipal leaders, you work with, I know you do. I hear you talking about different things. So all of them matter. Get registered, get out to vote, contact us. I'm on the internet, website, whatever, fbdemocrats.com. That's easy to remember. FB, as in Fort Bend, Democrats.com gets you to our website, which means that you can get to me. My numbers are out there, public. If we need to help you, get engaged. We are not going back.
Indeed, Cynthia, we are not going back. That's why we have hashtag Fort Bend Forward. At this time, I will invite the Democratic Party nominee for HD 76, Dr. Sulaiman Lalani. Come on.
It'll be difficult to follow the suit. Are we good?
We're good. We're good.
Well, before I start, I was reminded about maroon and white, and those who know me, my love for pocket squares. As the Uvalde children in Uvalde start school today, we stand in solidarity with them, but also it reminds us thoughts and prayers are not enough. We need policy change. I'm Dr. Sulaiman Lalani, the Democratic nominee for State Representative District 76. We need to continue to work to improve our healthcare access. We need to continue to work to increase our public education funding and the fair representation that we all deserve. I chose to come to the United States many years back because we are the greatest nation in the world. We have the cutting edge technology, research, and medical treatment. But I was shocked to see the inequity of our healthcare system. We have the world's largest medical center, mind you, not US, world's largest medical center, yet we have the highest number of uninsured here. How many of you know a grandparent who's rationing their medications because they can't afford? How many of you know a young person, in spite of working 2 jobs, unable to afford health insurance? Some of them, unfortunately, will end up in the emergency room. To save that $200, we will be spending $200,000 in the ER. Some of them would have complication, and the productive citizen will become dependent, and some will end up in a nursing home. We need to be proactive in healthcare, and that's what Democrats do. President Obama passed the historic Affordable Care Act. Biden-Harris administration recently passed Inflation Reduction Act. So thousands of Americans will continue to get their health care. First time, our seniors will have a cap on out-of-expense medical cost. Our seniors with diabetes will get insulin for $35. Historically, Americans have paid higher amount for the medications compared to other wealthy nations. First time, Medicare will negotiate medication prices with pharmaceutical. Recently, we all got home appraisals. Raise your hand if you're happy with it. It is a shame when our state would not come forward. We are on a bottom 4th when it comes to public education funding. 5.5 million children in Texas go to school. 97% go to public school. Who's going to pay? If the state will not come forward, it is a citizen like me and you who have to pay the burden. We must increase public education funding. Our zip code should not dictate the quality of education our children will get. We need to appreciate our teachers. We need to actually stop telling them what to teach or how to teach. We are creating paper degrees, but not enough creative minds to lead us for tomorrow. Texans, you have an option. This November, vote Democrats. If you will vote Democrats, we will continue to work on improving our healthcare access, increasing our public education funding. Fort Bend is thriving on our diversity, but diversity of inclusion. You heard Representative Ron Reynolds, first African American after Reconstruction. In 2018, Middleton made history, first DA, African American DA, our own county judge. We will be breaking many firsts in November. But I'm very proud to also say I will be the first Democratic doctor and the only doctor to join the ranks with Representative Ronalds, Jean Wu, and others to work for women's rights, to work for our healthcare access, to work to improve our education. We need to work on economic development and infrastructure, support private companies, but also to help our working families. I will be working with, say, gun safety. I will be working for our women's. So I look forward to health and support because I believe a healthier Texas, a safer Texas, a well-educated Texas is a stronger Texas for all. God bless America. God bless Texas.
Thank you, sir. I will invite the nominee for House District 132, Cameron Campbell. Please come forward.
How's everybody doing today? I'm gonna raise this microphone up a little bit so y'all can hear me. I would be remiss to stand here in Fort Bend and not acknowledge the Sugar Land Express, Kenny Hall, right? Kenny Hall is one of the most legendary football players to come across the state of Texas, let alone Fort Bend County. My name is Cameron, Coach Cam Campbell. Everybody calls me Coach Cam. Many of you know me as a head coach and athletic director at a local high school. I'm currently the Houston Texans Play Safe coach, which means it's my job to make sure that we keep as many football players at the high school level and youth level as safe as possible through awareness for concussion and tackle technique, as well as character education. Most importantly, I think we have to give the credit where it's due for the Biden administration, right? So one of the things that you understand as a coach, and there's a saying that's very popular, is the eye in the sky don't lie. What that means is, regardless of whatever you thought you did on the field, regardless of what other people are saying, whatever that camera says on the football field is exactly what you did. So if you made that block, the camera will tell you you made that block. If you took a play off, that film will tell you you took a play off. Regardless of what any narrative, regardless of what anybody wants to say, the Biden administration has knocked it out the park, especially when it comes to advocacy for our children, especially when it comes to creating additional resources due to loss of learning during COVID. It's absolutely knocked it out of the park. The eye in the sky doesn't lie. And the last thing that I think he's done a very effective job of the administration has is creating resources for pre-K, pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. Now we understand the stats. We understand that as soon as we can get our kids into a formal education, the better chance they have of making it to and through K through 12, which at this point is a starting point to success. Now, my vision for Katy and Cypress is very simple. I call it STEM 2.0. It's science, technology, engineering, and math with an extra E for entrepreneurship. Because as was pointed out earlier, we don't need another staffer to go work for Amazon. We don't need another worker to go work for Tesla. We need to create the next Elon Musk and the next Jeff Bezos right here in Texas. And the way we do that is by incorporating entrepreneurship into our K through 12 learning. And that also means expanding the trades in our schools. We all remember the good old days where you could get a haircut or take your car to get fixed at high school, or young ladies had cosmetology in K through 12. We got to bring the trades back into school. Now, the last thing I'll tell you is I'm very fortunate as a coach to have some fantastic and phenomenal coaches as a part of my coaching tree. The most impactful coach to me, or one of them, was my mentor coach, Coach Ray Seals, who's retired recently from Madison High School and HISD. One of the things that Coach Seals taught me that is extremely important is there are two ways to coach. You can coach with love, or you can coach by fear. Now, if you choose to coach by fear, you have to understand there are two direct repercussions. The moment that your players say, or what, and they get tired of getting pushed in the back, or the moment that you don't make good on the threat is a moment that you no longer can effectively lead by fear. That border wall that the last president promised was a fear tactic. It was an or what, he didn't deliver. Taking away women's rights is a fear. We have to fight for those. We absolutely have to fight for those. And more importantly, I want to speak directly to those who are formerly of the Republican Party and just good-hearted conservative people. There's nothing wrong with being a conservative person. There's nothing wrong with being independent. But be very clear. That party drew their line, and their line is fear, and that's the oldest play in the playbook. My name is Coach Cam. I'm looking forward to having the chance to earn the vote of the citizens of Katy and Cypress. We have 4 of the 30 fastest growing zip codes in the entire country. So when we talk about the advocacy for people of color, we live it. 89% of our growth comes from people of color. I'm looking forward to having a chance to serve as a state legislator and the first Black state legislator in the position of 132 Katy and Cypress. Thank you.
Now I'm going to lower this microphone. So at this point, we talk about a lot of things, but this election is all about women's rights, #1 issue in my opinion. And so I wanted to invite Sophia Sheikh, the president of Texas Democratic Women of Fort Bend. Say a few words.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm Sophia Sheikh, and I'm the president of the Texas Democratic Women of Fort Bend. As a mom of 3, there's nothing in the world more important to me than ensuring that my babies are able to succeed, and that starts at school. The sad fact is that though so many school districts in our state, especially school districts in communities of color, have been completely forgotten by our state's Republican leadership. But today, I'm feeling 2 things: gratitude and optimism. I feel grateful that in 2020, we elected an administration that finally cared about our nation's children. Through the American Rescue Plan, the Biden-Harris administration and our Texas Democrats in Congress provided Texas with nearly $12.7 billion in relief for K-12 schools, helping lift our schools out of the pandemic and ensuring our kids and teachers could safely return back to school. In fact, thanks to President Biden and Democrats' American Rescue Plan, 99% of schools were open for in-person learning in March of this year, up from less than half when President Biden took office. That same historic legislation gave relief of up to $1,600 per child to the child tax credit to the families of nearly 7 million children, lifting over 500,000 Texas kids out of poverty. Not one single Texas Republican, not John Cornyn, not Ted Cruz, not a single Texas Republican voted for this bill. So needless to say, I'm grateful we have a Democrat leading us in Washington. And like I said, I'm also feeling optimistic. I'm feeling optimistic because once we get these Republicans out of office in Austin, November, from Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, and Ken Paxton on down to the ticket, we'll finally be able to give our kids the funding, the resources, and the safety they need to deserve from the state level. We'll finally have a governor in Beto O'Rourke who cares about public education and ensures that every child in Texas, no matter their zip code or their family's socioeconomic status, is able to access a quality education. Amid a nationwide teacher shortage, which due to Greg Abbott's complete disregard for public education is hitting Texas especially hard, high poverty school districts struggle to attract certified and experienced educators. With Beto, we'll finally have a governor who realizes that these disparities and works to solve them for the sake of kids' future. And I'm optimistic that in November, we'll finally have state leaders who understand the weight and gravity of gun violence and the urgent need to make real gun safety legislation a top priority. After this press conference, I'm going to go right back to work, leading the Texas Democrat Women of Fort Bend, hitting the phones and knocking the doors to make sure and continue to organize women in Fort Bend County, of course, with Cynthia Ginyard leading the way, who are more fired up for this election than I've ever seen them before. And I hope you will join me in taking this gratitude and this optimism and transforming it into action, because we owe it to our children in our state to give them the future they deserve. Thank you.
So watch out, Republicans. You heard that. Our women are coming. And so I conclude by saying this. I tell you this many times, these people come and lecture you about this and that. And also, they were talking about gas prices and inflation. And I'm like, you need to update your talking point a little bit. That is yesterday's talking points. And I tell you this as a county judge. I slept in this courthouse for 4 days during snowstorm Uri. That was not fun. And I got phone calls saying that, a young mother said, I've been driving for 6 hours so that I could keep my 4-week-old baby warm. In Texas, people. And also a grandmother calling me saying that, I'm on the last oxygen cylinder. I think after that, I don't have one. I will die. And people heating up, snow so that they can flush toilet. And so when Republicans come and lecture me, I tell them, come back after you fix the grid. Come back after we fix the problems of many issues we talk about. And also, I just came back from a conference where there's one person put a presentation about gun violence, and of course, that presentation was focused on Buffalo shooting. But I tell you this: all these people lecturing about Second Amendment right, I'm not against Second Amendment, and I am also a gun owner. I just wanted to be very clear. But the thing about it is, when your child got blown up in pieces and they have to look for their socks to identify, or the shirt or the something they're wearing to identify your child, you would never fight for, my rights. You will never do that. I know that for sure. I know for that sure. And you know what? Let's collectively do something about it. That's why we have an option in November. And you heard from Sophia, you heard from many people here. And we have an option to fix these problems. And I also tell you this, have you ever heard after Biden administration came into office, there is a vaccine shortage? Have you ever heard of a mask shortage? No. And that issue I faced in this courthouse before that. And in the middle of all this stuff, we struggled so much, but we wanted to bring sanity, equity, and also just simple, human dignity to this whole process. That's what we want. Thank you for joining us this morning. And it is an awesome day, and we have work to do. And Sophia, where are you block walking today? You're making, no, I'm just joking. And we are doing that. And I would conclude by saying this. Thank you for being here. Many of you came from, it's the first day of the week, and you came from work, and you have to get back to work. But you know what? Thank you for Texas Democratic Party to organize something like this. And you see here, there is a sign saying that Texas Democrat deliver. Fort Bend County is a better place 4 years later because people like me, people like Brian, people like Eric Fagan, people like Ron Reynolds, there were many people in office. And that's the reason why we said we wanted to continue that. #Fort Bend Forward. Thank you.